One weekend, one swing, $15 million. That's all it took for Caitlin Clark to flip the sports world on its head without saying a single word. While she was smiling on a golf course, cashing brand deals and breaking records in a sport she doesn't even play professionally, the WNBA was nowhere to be found. No posts, no congratulations, just silence. The kind of silence that isn't peaceful, it's loud, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. Fans noticed it instantly. How could the same players who spent months talking about her suddenly act like she didn't exist? Maybe it wasn't about the game anymore. Maybe it was about what happens when one athlete becomes too big to ignore. Caitlin Clark didn't just show up to swing a golf club. She showed up and reminded everyone what real star power looks like. In one weekend, she attracted more headlines than some entire leagues get in a season. Tickets sold out, cameras followed her every move, and sponsors lined up faster than ever before. The spotlight that once made others uneasy was now shining brighter than ever, just not where people expected it to. What happened at that golf tournament wasn't an accident. It was proof that talent, confidence, and authenticity can break through any wall of silence. So let's connect the dots, because this story isn't just about golf, and it's not just about Caitlin Clark. It's about how two worlds, one that celebrates greatness and one that fears it, collided in a single weekend, and only one of them came out winning. The RSM Classic Pro-Am was never supposed to be headline material. It's the kind of event that quietly slides under the radar. Pros, celebrities, and weekend athletes swinging for fun. Cameras rolling for charity coverage, and fans showing up for autographs, not fireworks. But this year, something was different. The buzz started as a whisper, a rumor floating through group chats and golf forums. Caitlin Clark might be playing. At first, nobody believed it. A basketball star at a professional golf event? It sounded like a gimmick. But the moment her name unofficially appeared on the roster, everything changed. Tickets that had been gathering dust for weeks suddenly vanished overnight. People weren't showing up for Tiger Woods or LPGA legends, they were showing up for Caitlin Clark. Fans traded polos for Indiana Fever jerseys, turning what should have been a laid-back golf crowd into a sea of basketball energy. By sunrise, the parking lot looked more like a playoff game than a charity tee-off. Reporters showed up, influencers started streaming. Even the security team was overwhelmed by the unexpected turnout. A sleepy golf event had transformed into a spectacle. The players could feel it too. Conversations hushed when she walked onto the course. You could sense that everyone knew they were watching something new, something that didn't fit the usual script of golf decorum. Caitlin wasn't there to prove she belonged. She was there to have fun. But in doing that, she ended up showing how one person's energy can change the entire atmosphere of a sport. The LPGA had never seen a crossover moment like this before, and while golf fans were getting ready for a fun round, they had no idea they were about to witness one of the most talked-about performances of the year. Because what Caitlin did next didn't just break the silence, it broke expectations. When Caitlin Clark stepped up to the tee box, the noise faded. Thousands of people stood shoulder to shoulder, holding their phones, waiting for a moment they didn't even know they were waiting for. She wasn't in a basketball arena anymore. No three-point line, no shot clock, no crowd chanting her name. Just a stretch of green grass, a cool breeze, and one golf ball sitting quietly in front of her. She smiled, adjusted her stance, and took a single, calm breath. Then came that sound. The clean, pure contact. It echoed through the course like thunder. The ball didn't just fly, it soared. A perfect 270 yards straight down the middle of the fairway, not a hint of a slice or hook. Even Tiger Woods, watching nearby, lifted an eyebrow and laughed, saying under his breath that it might be the best first swing he'd ever seen from a non-pro. The crowd erupted. Golf fans, basketball fans, even people who had never picked up a club were on their feet cheering. For a moment, it didn't matter that she wasn't a golfer. She had just delivered something every athlete dreams of. A moment that feels bigger than the sport itself. Within minutes, clips of her swing flooded social media. Caitlin Clark golf shot to the top of trending topics worldwide. Steph Curry tweeted joking that she might already be better than him. ESPN ran highlights calling her the most natural crossover athlete since Michael Jordan. Golf Digest wrote, "Caitlin Clark just changed golf forever." What started as a casual charity event had turned into a global moment. But behind the cheers and viral headlines, something deeper was happening. The golf world was embracing her, celebrating her talent, her poise, and her ease in the spotlight. She wasn't being treated like an outsider trying to fit in. She was being welcomed as one of their own. And while the applause echoed across the fairways, another sound was starting to get louder: the silence from her so-called rivals. Because while golf was celebrating Caitlin Clark, another league was pretending not to notice. While the golf world was exploding with excitement, one corner of the sports world stayed eerily quiet. The same WNBA players who had spent an entire season making subtle digs and public comments about Caitlin Clark suddenly went missing. No posts, no mentions, no congratulatory messages. Just silence. Not a word from Aja Wilson. Not a reaction from Angel Reese. The athletes who never missed a chance to talk about media coverage or fairness somehow had nothing to say when Caitlin made history in a sport outside their own. Fans caught it immediately. The comment sections were ruthless. One fan wrote, "Funny how they had time to throw shade all year but can't find time to say congrats." Another said, "They turned into ghosts the moment she started winning off the court." It wasn't just about sports anymore. It was about pride, ego, and what happens when someone you underestimated keeps winning anyway. That silence became its own statement, one louder than any trash talk or post-game interview.
Meanwhile, on the golf course, Caitlin was getting nothing but respect. LPGA superstar Nelly Korda walked up after the round, smiling, and told her, "You belong here." Another pro said Caitlin's energy was exactly what this sport has been missing. The contrast was impossible to ignore. In one league, she was treated like competition. In another, she was treated like inspiration. And in that difference, you could see the entire problem laid bare. The WNBA didn't have a Caitlin Clark problem, it had a jealousy problem. Because while they were busy guarding their egos, another sport saw an opportunity and ran with it. Golf embraced what basketball tried to suppress, and that shift wasn't just emotional, it was financial. The moment Caitlin teed off, everything around her started changing. The viewership, the sponsorships, the headlines. That silence from her critics? It didn't hide anything. It exposed everything. The moment Caitlin Clark's name appeared on that Pro-Am lineup, the economics of the entire event flipped overnight. Tickets that had been sitting unsold for weeks were gone in hours. Vendors ran out of merchandise before the first round even started. The official website crashed twice under the surge of traffic. Organizers said they'd never seen anything like it. Not for Tiger Woods, not for LPGA champions, not for anyone. Caitlin Clark had turned a quiet charity golf weekend into a full-blown cultural event. But what happened next was even more shocking. Reports started surfacing that the tournament sponsors were scrabbling to capitalize on the moment. Phone lines lit up. Brands that had never spent a dime on women's golf suddenly wanted their logos anywhere near Caitlin Clark. Ticket sales didn't just spike, they skyrocketed by more than 1,200% according to insiders. The broadcast, which was supposed to be a modest weekend stream, ended up pulling in more viewers than some LPGA finals. And as the cameras rolled, so did the money. Within days, sources claimed Caitlin had signed multiple new endorsement deals, one with a major sportswear company, another with a high-end golf brand, and even a streaming service that reportedly offered her a mini documentary series about her crossover into golf. The total value? Over $15 million. Let that sink in. $15 million from a sport she doesn't even play professionally. One weekend of casual golf turned into more money than most WNBA stars make in their entire careers combined. Analysts started calling it the Clark effect. Every league she touches grows, every event she appears in breaks records, and every brand she partners with sees instant returns. Golf networks called her the spark the sport didn't know it needed. For sponsors, it wasn't about gender or league, it was about attention. Caitlin brought eyeballs, energy, and legitimacy to everything she touched. Meanwhile, the WNBA's silence became even harder to defend. While they were posting promo clips and dance trends, Caitlin was rewriting the business playbook for women's sports. The LPGA had welcomed her, embraced her, and made millions doing it. The WNBA had pushed her aside, and in doing so, they watched millions slip right through their fingers. Because Caitlin didn't just play a round of golf. She played the game of exposure, influence, and branding, and she won it in a single weekend. The internet saw the contrast before the leagues did. One side was celebrating Caitlin Clark like a superstar, The other side was pretending she didn't exist. Screenshots started flooding social media. On the left, LPGA pros smiling with Caitlin, sharing photos and praising her performance. On the right, WNBA players posting dance clips, selfies, and brand promos while completely ignoring the story everyone else was talking about. The comment sections were merciless. One league promotes talent, the other promotes drama, one fan wrote. Another said, the LPGA gets it, the WNBA just doesn't want to share the spotlight. But this wasn't just a petty online debate. It was the beginning of a shift in how fans view women's sports altogether. The golf world showed that when you celebrate talent, everyone wins. The WNBA, on the other hand, seemed to be stuck in a loop of comparison and insecurity, and that difference became crystal clear in real time. People who had never cared about golf were suddenly tuning in just to see Caitlin Clark. She wasn't selling controversy, she was selling excitement, joy, and authenticity. She reminded people why they love competition in the first place. Athletes from other sports noticed too. Serena Williams called her electric. Patrick Mahomes reposted her swing with the caption, "Unreal talent." Even LeBron James jumped in, calling her different. These weren't just compliments, they were acknowledgments from legends who recognized that something special was happening. Caitlin wasn't just crossing into another sport, she was crossing into cultural dominance.
And yet, the silence from some corners of the WNBA stayed deafening. Fans started asking why the loudest voices all year suddenly had nothing to say. Was it jealousy? Was it pride? Or was it fear that Caitlin Clark was becoming bigger than the league itself? Whatever the reason, that silence spoke volumes. Because while they were choosing sides, Caitlin was choosing impact. She didn't drag anyone, didn't clap back, didn't play into the noise. She just kept competing. The result? A fan base that grew across sports, ages, and even countries. People weren't talking about women's sports anymore. They were talking about Caitlin Clark. That's the cultural shift. When one athlete becomes so magnetic that she transcends her league, the conversation changes from who's watching to who isn't. And that shift wasn't accidental. It was earned through confidence, humility, and results. Caitlin Clark had done what few athletes ever achieve. She turned attention into loyalty, and loyalty into legacy. When reporters finally asked Caitlin Clark about the silence from her peers, she didn't flinch. No eye roll, no jab, no hint of irritation. Just that calm, unbothered smile she's become known for. Her answer was simple. I'm focused on what makes me happy. That's competing, no matter what sport it is. In one sentence, she managed to silence the noise without feeding it. No drama, no shade, just focus. It was the kind of response that only someone comfortable in their own success can give. Measured, graceful, and quietly savage. That moment summed her up perfectly. Caitlin doesn't chase validation. She doesn't need approval from rivals, critics, or even leagues. She lets performance speak for itself. Every shot she takes, whether it's a three-pointer or a perfect drive down the fairway, becomes a statement. You can't out-talk results. And maybe that's what bothers some people the most, her ability to dominate without ever appearing pressed. When clips of her response hit social media, fans went wild, the comment sections filled with admiration. That's real confidence, one fan wrote. Another said, she's living rent-free and doesn't even know it. Others pointed out how rare it is to see an athlete handle tension with that much maturity. No clapbacks, no cryptic posts, just composure. She didn't fuel the rivalry, she transcended it. Even more telling was how other athletes reacted. Golf pros praised her humility. Sports icons called her mindset refreshing. It was clear she wasn't just winning games or tournaments, she was winning people. Her calm demeanor paired with her relentless drive made her the kind of athlete fans could root for without hesitation. She wasn't trying to be perfect, she was just being herself. And that's the secret Caitlin Clark has mastered. She doesn't force a narrative. She lets the story unfold naturally, powered by her actions. The more people try to box her in, the more she breaks through. Her silence is power. Her focus is contagious. And in a world where everyone seems to be shouting for attention, Caitlin Clark stands out by not needing to have to. That composure turned her from a standout player into a cultural symbol. proof that grace under pressure still wins in an era built on noise. When the weekend ended, it wasn't just the scorecards or sponsorships that told the story. It was the message behind it all. Caitlin Clark had turned a casual golf outing into a masterclass on what happens when greatness is embraced instead of resented. One league chose silence, another chose celebration. And in that split-second decision, the world saw exactly why one is growing and the other is struggling. Because this was never just about golf. It was about opportunity, how it's given, how it's withheld, and how one athlete refused to wait for permission to shine. Caitlin didn't step on that course to prove anyone wrong. She stepped on because she loves to compete. And in doing so, she proved something much bigger. Talent doesn't belong to one sport, one league, or one narrative. It belongs to those who show up ready to deliver when the moment comes. The LPGA understood that immediately. They saw Caitlin not as a threat, but as an ally, a spark that could bring new eyes, new fans, and new life to their game. They celebrated her, welcomed her, and profited with her. The WNBA, on the other hand, stayed silent and watched as millions in exposure, sponsorships, and goodwill drifted toward another league that simply knew how to say welcome. That wasn't just a PR misstep. It was a missed era-defining opportunity.
And that's the real lesson. When you treat greatness like competition, you lose. When you treat it like collaboration, everyone wins. Caitlin Clark didn't steal the spotlight, she earned it. She reminded the world that confidence isn't arrogance. The joy can be powerful, and that success shared is success multiplied. She didn't need to tear anyone down to rise. She just needed a fair shot. And when she got it, she turned it into a movement. As the cameras packed up and fans filed out, one thing became crystal clear. Caitlin Clark isn't just rewriting records. She's rewriting the rules for how we value athletes, regardless of league or label. The Caitlin Clark era has officially begun, and the leagues that embrace it will grow with her. The ones that don't, they'll be left wondering how one weekend, one swing, and one unstoppable athlete managed to change everything. Because in the end, greatness doesn't need applause to prove itself. It just needs a stage. And when Caitlin Clark found hers, the world finally started paying attention.